Let's move to sustaining motivation. And how do we get from here to there? So we set a goal, we did it right. What are the strategies that we use in order to help ourselves make the progress? In general, progress increases motivation. Okay, many students in the US, college students in the US drop college. Actually, around half of the people that start college will drop college, will not have a college degree. When do they drop out? Well, usually at the first couple of years, not in the last couple of years. When we look at loyalty programs, a similar effect, okay? When you start a loyalty program, okay, you will make several purchases and eventually get a reward. Very likely you will drop that program after the first or second purchase. Most likely you're not going to drop this program when you are just one purchase away from winning the reward. Progress increases motivation. Why? Well, if it's an all or nothing goal, then there is more that you get for the last action compared to the first action, okay? The last purchase is giving you the reward in the loyalty program. The first purchase, only a fraction of it. Even if it's not an all or nothing goal, just the fact that we make progress, we look back, we see that we can do it, we feel more confident, we continue doing it. Okay, think about a new exercise that you may try. Okay, I recently started to exercise, to do Pilates, and you know it's kind of fun. I'm new to it. The first time I was very intimidated. After I did it a few times, I felt more confident. Okay, maybe I can do it. Progress increases confidence. But progress sometimes leads us to disengage with the goal. Sometimes when we perceive that we have made progress or that we are about to make progress, we take this as an excuse to disengage. We feel depleted. If we have done it, we feel licensed if we are going to do it. What you see here is a picture of people using the escalator on the way to the fitness center. You know, I believe that many of us, we are in the situation where we are driving to the gym and we are trying to find a parking spot that is the closest to the door. Okay, basically, we feel that we don't need to take the extra steps given that we are going to exercise once we are inside. Okay, in this sense, the progress that we are going to make feels like an excuse not to walk too much for the rest of the day. So how do we know whether we should focus on the action that we have done or what is still missing in order to motivate ourselves? Well, what we find in motivation science is that attention to the progress that we have made, attention to the glass half full, is best for novices, it's best up to the midpoint, if it's an all or nothing goal. Okay, if we start something new and we look back and we say, oh, I already did this a few times, or I already covered like 20% of the goal, that increases motivation. Beyond the midpoint, and for experts, it's often best to look at the glass half empty. Okay, what's missing? What I can still do to stay motivated. We also find that the way people monitor the progress, whether they focus on what they have done versus what is still missing, influences their level of aspiration. In a study with my colleague Min-Jang Koo, we found, this was in Seoul, in an advertising company, and we found that employees that described what they still have to do, what they still want to achieve this year, had higher level of aspiration. They were aspiring to move to a different world, to a more advanced world, to take new tasks, compared to employees that focus on what they have accomplished. Okay, so focusing on a glass half full made people feel good about their current role, less motivated to move forward. Either way, we have a problem in the middle. The beginning is exciting, the end is exciting. Okay, we often have a party when we start on something, we have a party when we are graduating something. In the middle is when motivation is not the strongest. We see this with physical activities swimmers and runners. Usually they are faster at the beginning and end compared with the middle. We see it with our everyday tasks. We tend to be spending less energy in the middle. We also tend to not do such a great job. So we lower our standards in the middle. Here's a demonstration from a study I ran with the Rematur Artillery, where we surveyed people in Israel around the holiday of Hanukkah. And the holiday of Hanukkah is interesting for us because if you observe the holiday, you need to light the candles on 8 consecutive nights. What we found is that most people who observe the holiday did light the candles on the first night. Okay? Most of them were doing it on the last night. In the middle is when about half of the people kind of forgot to light the candles. In other studies, we found that people literally cut corners in the middle. What we did was giving people a piece of paper with shapes on it and a pair of scissors, and they had to cut these shapes. And what we found is that people are doing a very good job with the first shape and the last shape, but they are literally cutting corners, the corners of these shapes, when they are in the shapes that are in the middle of the task. So keep middles short. Feedback. Part of making progress on the goal is learning from feedback, and for most people, it is easier to learn from positive feedback than negative feedback. It is easier to learn from feedback when things go well than when you encounter setbacks. It was that led Serena Williams to say that she has grown most not from victories but setbacks. If winning is God's rewards, then losing is how it teaches us. It is the reason that the Supreme Court Justice John Roberts once wished in a graduation speech, wished graduates to have bad luck from time to time so that they learn from failure. These people are telling us to learn from failure exactly because it's hard to do. Okay, it's the reason I remind my son to wash his hands before dinner. It's because he wouldn't do it unless I remind him to do so. And we talk about why it's important to learn from negative feedback, because it's not intuitive, because it's not easy to do. And we developed quite a few strategies to help people learn from negative feedback. One thing that we found to be effective is asking people to give advice after they experience some setback. Okay, we found that when we ask people that are struggling with their finance or with their weight, when we ask unemployed people, when we ask people who say that they have trouble controlling their temper, to give advice to another person on the problem that they are struggling with, the people who gave advice were motivated by their own advice. Okay, it reminded them that they learned something, that there is something that they can do. We find that some cultures are better at encouraging learning from failure, and indeed, many Silicon Valley companies are now celebrating failures in events that are meant to get people to think together about what they have learned. We call it commitment and expertise, we found helps people deal and learn from failure. Carol Dweck studied the role of mindsets and how having a growth mindset helps people learn from failure. We found that often learning from others' failures is easier. Okay, so to the extent that we tell others about our failures, well, that will help them. Ethan Cross did an amazing work on taking perspective and moving away, distancing yourself from the failure. One of the things that he advises that you will do is calling yourself by your name when you analyze failure. So saying something like, Ayelet, what happened? Ayelet, how did you mess it up? Okay, and by that taking this distance that helps you learn from failure. Let's move to multiple goals. And what do we know about multiple goals? Well, first, we know that they are there. okay, that unlike Kierkegaard's advice to will one thing, people actually will many things together, and our advice is to pick your battle. We also know that in addressing multiple goals, you often want to decide whether you're looking for compromise, whether you want to balance your goals, or whether you're looking to prioritize. Okay, you might want to find the right balance between career and family. You might want to prioritize starting a family over your career, or postponing starting a family, so you prioritize your career. When we prioritize, it is often a self-control dilemma. Okay, we might prioritize eating healthy food over eating whatever feels good at the moment. Okay, when we compromise, we are looking for balance. We want to achieve multiple goals. Let's start with compromising. When we compromise, when we want to achieve many goals, we often look at what as motivational scientists call multi-final means. Okay, these are means that help us achieve several goals simultaneously. I refer to it as feeding two bears with one scone. Okay, basically, maybe making food at home helps me save money, helps me eat healthier food, and is also a nice hobby. Okay, so I achieve several things with this activity. We also look at equifinal means. These are activities that all serve the same goal. You can think about it as all roads lead to Rome. Maybe my goal is to eat healthier food, and I can do it by cooking my own food. I can do it by buying more fruits and veggies. I can do it by planning my meals in advance. Okay, all these means lead to the same goal, and what that gets me is often some backup plans. Okay, if something did not work out, I still have all the other ways to achieve my goal. When we think about prioritizing, this is often where we are in a self-control conflict. And for self-control conflicts, what we know is that it helps to first identify the conflict and then resolve it. These are actually two separate challenges. There are two separate challenges because identifying a conflict requires that you see this single temptation as a temptation. This single cookie is something that you should avoid. This single instance in which you lost your temper or might be tempted to lose your temper as a problem. And if you identify a conflict, if you realize that this one cookie is not good for you, this one time of losing your temper is not good for you, then you need to resolve the conflict. In terms of identifying a conflict, it's easier when you think about them in a broad decision frame, when you think about several temptations together. Here's a study in which people were encouraged to think about exceptional purchases as part of a bulk. Okay, as all the time this year that you would like to buy a bottle of champagne, or all the times you would like to go to the theater, or all the times that you would buy a night in a hotel. When people think about multiple purchases together, they are more attentive to their financial goals. They realize that they should not overspend. In terms of in terms of battling temptations, what we find is that if you have an early warning, if you know that the temptation is going to be there, it is easier to counteract it than if it is presented and you were unprepared. Okay? Basically, dealing with temptations, resisting temptations is like lifting a heavy package. If you know that the box is going to be heavy, you are going to be prepared. Okay? Your body is prepared to lift it. If it arrives without warning, then we have a problem. And so when people know that there will be too much alcohol in the party, or the situation is going to be too tense and they might lose their temper, they are better able to resist these temptations than if they are not prepared in advance. I want to skip the patience. This is an entire other topic. You can read about it in my book, and get to the last part, which is designing social support. We think about social support in basically two ways. Okay? One is where other people are doing something with us. Okay? We pursue the goal as a group, okay? as a couple, okay? As a family, as a company. This is the example of people pulling the rope together. You might even say that most of the important goals that you had in your life are things that you did with other people. Okay, you started a family with someone. Okay, you started a company with someone. You worked on a project with someone. I certainly work on my research with other people. The other type of social support is when others are around us and what they do and also what they believe in affects our behavior. And this is the example of going to a gym class with other people. Because they are there, I am motivated to exercise. When we work with others, once again, we need to notice the glass half full and the glass half empty. Okay, if the others, if you are less committed, then look at what other people are doing. If you are more committed, then look at what other people are not doing, what's still missing. Here's a charity campaign in which we found that new donors, uncommitted donors, gave more money when they noticed what other people were doing, when we highlighted how much others are giving. Regular donors gave more money when we highlighted how much other people are not giving, how far away we are from meeting the goal. When working in the presence of others, when others are just there watching us or telling us what's important, well, this is when conformity matters. This is the typical electricity bill in the US, and you can see that we give people information about their neighbors, okay, how much electricity your neighbor has been using, how much the efficient neighbor has been using as a way to motivate being more environmental. As a final point, I want to mention that our goals shape our relationships and our relationships shape our goals, and motivation science and the study of relationships are very much influencing each other. Several principles there that I'm going to mention using the example of Marie and Pierre Curie. Marie Curie is my personal inspiration, so I love their story. If you remember, they won the Nobel Prize in physics together before she won another Nobel Prize by herself. And they also taught us a bit about relationship. They taught us that we connect to those who hold similar goals. Okay? They bonded over their scientific interest. They taught us that we help each other's goals. Okay? Pierre insisted that Marie will get the first Nobel Prize with him. They taught us that we pursue shared goals. They together isolated polonium and then radium. And they taught us that we hold goals for others. They had two very successful daughters, and their oldest, Iran, won the Nobel Prize in chemistry, by the way, also with her husband, which suggests that they supported their girls' education, in particular their scientific education. All right, let me stop here and say that what I discovered as I was writing about motivation science is that our insights fall into these four buckets: setting a goal, sustaining motivation, addressing multiple goals, and designing social support. I hope you enjoy this presentation. I hope you would like to read more about the work. Here are some ways in which you can contact me, and I would be delighted to hear your questions and comments.